pushed its military equipment closer to the borders of Iran in an anticipated full-blown war with Iran. But days later, the United States of America has hesitated from launching a full-scale military attack on Iran. What could be the reasons as to why the United States of America is engaging in a massive military buildup against Iran, and then days later, the United States of America has not launched that much weighted attack? The United States of America has pushed its military equipment closer to the boundaries of Iran. This has escalated the region tensions and potentially pushed the world into anticipating a military confrontation between Iran and the United States of America. In the recent past, the United States of America has deployed warships, aircraft, and air defense systems and mobile launchers across its military bases in the Middle East. This energizing of its military bases in Middle East is seen as a build-up in as far as the impending military attack on Iran is concerned. But days later, the United States of America has hesitated from attacking Iran. Why could be the reason that the US is hesitating? Now let's look at Iran. Iran is not an ordinary state in the Middle East. This is a state that has spent a huge chunk of its resources in building its military capabilities. Iran Republic has endeavored to build its military to a capacity that is able to withstand external attack. Iran has also embarked on a nuclear production journey. And Iran has also created networks with the non-state actors operating across the Middle East. These non-state actors, some of them have a military strength and they are able to engage in military activities. These non-state actors, such as the Hamas in the Gaza Strip, the Hezbollah in Lebanon, and the Houthi rebels in Yemen, can easily cause havoc to any other state that is attacking Iran. And this means that this is not a war between one state and another state. This is a war that is likely to bring other actors on board and is likely to be an overwhelming kind of a war. The US, therefore, has taken its time before launching the military attack. This is because there is almost a clear evidence that a military attack is going to throw the entire of the Middle East into a full-blown war. Now, when you look at the Middle East, you realize that most of the states in Middle East are already struggling with internal challenges that have pushed these states to a near political collapse. And therefore, most of them are very fragile. It can be argued that some of the states surrounding Iran are actually failed states or states that are gearing towards failure. And therefore, an attack on Iran is going to destabilize the entire region. And this destabilization of the entire region is likely to play to the disadvantage of the United States of America. This is because it is likely to result into a protracted warfare that is going to last for a very long period of time. And in this long period of time, it is going to require massive resources. It is going to take a toll on the human cost, and it is likely to derail the global economy. This is because Iran is located in a strategic place, that is the Strait of Hormuz. In the Strait of Hormuz, 20% of global trade goes through that strait, and therefore the war between the US and Iran is going to push that region out of access, and that is likely to have a ripple effect as far as the international trade is concerned. And this is likely to drive inflation, is likely to drive the oil prices across the world. Because remember, the Middle East is one of the regions that is heavily producing oil that runs the world. And therefore, this attack, if it is not well managed and goes to a full-blown military warfare, is going to result into a disruption of oil processing activities. And this disruption is going to disrupt global trade. And this is going to push majority of the states that depend on oil from Middle East into some economic stagnation and inflation. And this is likely to worsen the cost of living across the world. And as a result of this, the US, looking at the cost in as far as this conflict is concerned, the US is hesitating to take a military attack against Iran. The other reason is because that there is diplomatic negotiations that are going on. These diplomatic negotiations that are going on are likely to bear fruit compared to a full-blown military encounter. If these negotiations bear fruit, they are going to save each party from a war that could have costed them so much in as far as their history is concerned. And therefore, in giving diplomacy a chance, the United States of America has decided to hesitate from launching a full-scale military attack on Iran. The other reason is that when you look at this conflict, there is no state that is going to come out of this conflict victorious in the short term possible without the backing of other states. The United States of America would want to rely on the NATO. In as much as it has the capacity to act unilaterally, it will be a great boost if it is boosted by its NATO allies. And Iran is also likely to bank on the like-minded states. And then this throws the entire global politics into some form of a vicious cycle of war that knows not its end. And therefore, states that are supporting the US have not seen a good reason or a justified reason as to why the United States should attack Iran. And most of them are pushing for dialogue. They are pushing for diplomatic negotiation, and they are not keen on supporting the US in as far as its military expedition is concerned in Iran. And as a result of that, the US can feel drained or morally lacking in as far as a justifiable reason is concerned to start this war. And that is likely to derail it or make it hesitate from launching that attack. The domestic actors also within the US, there is a growing concern of a number of people and citizens that are not supporting that kind of a war. This is because when you look at the historical evidence, the US war on Iraq and the US war in Afghanistan was prolonged for a very long period of time, and at the end, most of the analysts have argued that this wars did not realize the military objective they were set to realize in the first place, despite the fact of the human cost that was encountered in this conflict and the huge resources that were pumped in these resources. In fact, there are some other political analysts that have argued that the US war on Afghanistan is one of the US most useless wars in the century because of the manner in which this conflict unfolded. And at the end, the Taliban that were supposed to be suppressed, they actually ran over the city immediately the United States of America left. And in the case of Iraq, after the fall of the Saddam Hussein regime and subsequent imposition of governments, those governments have not been able to bring Iraq under control as anticipated. And therefore, Iraq remains a state that is politically fragile. And also, the hardliners retreated to the periphery parts of Iraq, where they launched the ISIS, the Islamic State, in that kind of an expedition that was set to counter the war, the terrorist activities. It resulted into the creation of one of the world's most deadly terrorist group. And therefore, when you look keenly, you realize that these wars did not realize the military objectives they were set to realize. And this is because also the Middle East has not been keen on uptaking of the US doctrines, especially the democracy, which means that it is unlikely for the US to push its ideals into the Middle East. It is possible to topple a regime, but it is almost impossible to find an alternative regime that can form a government that can stabilize the region. And as a result of that, after war, the region is left either teetering towards collapse or reeling from collapse and never really stabilizing. And as a result of that, it becomes even more vulnerable to the growth of terrorist cells, some of them that cause havoc in global politics and global attacks. And therefore, the US could be hesitating because of this domestic population that is very critical to this war, that is looking at this war as another venture that is almost a wild goose chase, which cannot be able to realize the military objectives. And when you compare Iran, Iraq, and Afghanistan, you can actually see that Iran is not that weak compared to Saddam Hussein's regime in Iraq and also the Afghanistan that was attacked later in 2003 by the United States of America. And as a result of that, if the US did not succeed in its military expedition in Afghanistan and also in Iraq, it is going to be nearly impossible for it to succeed in Iran. And that is likely to be making its population more unaccepting as far as this military encounter is concerned. And therefore, making the US not to be keen on taking the military attack on this particular state. So for me, I think that the US military buildup is more of enhancing deterrence with an aim of pushing Iran into the negotiation table as opposed to launching a full-scale military attack. And this is likely to be the better option as far as these encounters and engagements are concerned, because diplomacy is likely to produce a win-win situation in this kind of a conflict. A full-blown war is likely to result into a protracted conflict that is going to drag for so many years, and that is going to require lots of resources, and it is likely to create a hardliner kind of group that is going to enhance resentment across the globe, and the US is likely to face several retaliatory attacks, especially from the non-state actors that are supporting Iran. And these non-state actors, some of them have the capacity to derail and destabilize the entire of the Middle East. And also, the US allies in Middle East are not keen to join in this war or support this war, because they know they are likely to face a backlash within the Middle East, because the rallying call that is going to emerge after this attack is almost a region that is standing in solidarity with Iran, and therefore any state that is going to express support to the United States is likely to face a backlash, and that is not going to work for any good in as far as the welfare of these states are concerned. And therefore, this is a war that the US would want to hesitate from taking because of the reasons that lie behind these attacks, and because in the long run it is likely to be a vicious cycle that is going to drag the US for a very long period of time, and then at the end we are not able to realize the military objectives set to be realized in the first place. And therefore, diplomacy appears to be the best way out of this, because it's likely to be a win-win situation for everyone, and also for the greater security of the Middle